Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fresh from Maryland, a series from Maryland Snap Ed. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We dig into a different local produce item each week and talk about where to find it, how to select the best that there is out there, and then how to make the most of it in your kitchen. And if you're returning, welcome back. Love to have you here. And everyone, please take time to introduce yourself in the chat with your county if you're in Maryland, or your city and state if you are from outside of Maryland. And as always, questions and comments are welcome, and we'll respond to them throughout the post. So let's go ahead and introduce our chef for the day. Lynn Mateva is a returning chef on Fresh from Maryland. Lynn is our nutrition educator and project leader in Wacomico County, Maryland, down in the lower Eastern Shore. So welcome, Lynn. And if you wouldn't mind, let's start with our market shout out for the day. So what market are you going to tell our audience about that you want to make sure that they know, and if they're in Wacomico, can go visit?
We have two markets in the area. One is the Shore Fresh Growers Market, which is on Saturdays down by the river. And we have the Camden Avenue Market, which is every Tuesday. That one is year round, the second one, and there is a mushroom grower there.
Wonderful. And yes, that is our topic for the day, is mushrooms. So yeah, check out this farmers market. If you're in Wacomico, if you're in other parts of Maryland, we are going to post the link to the current farmers market directory for the state of Maryland, in that it includes whether each market, or at least farmers at each market, accept EBT or the Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which serves both WIC participants as well as seniors. So check that information. Also, then make sure before you go out to the market planning to spend benefits that you verify that. Most of the markets have contact information either by phone, website, social media, where you can confirm benefits acceptance, because that information does change. And also, as we're still kind of unraveling from pandemic restrictions, sometimes locations and that kind of stuff or times might be shifted a little bit. So we do hope you go out to the market. And if you have received pandemic EBT, so that program is, finally folks have that in hand. There's still some hiccups in it, but by and large, many people have received their first issuance for the school year that, was for this school year. And that money can be spent anywhere, including farmers markets that accept EBT. So this is a great chance to take advantage of wonderful local produce. So we are going to be talking about mushrooms. And quite honestly, Lynn, this is something we haven't spent a whole lot of time in Snap Ed talking about mushrooms, but they're really a delicious addition to your cooking if you haven't ever cooked with them before. So let's talk about mushrooms. What are you, like varieties, what you want folks to know about them, selecting, nutrition, all that stuff?
Yeah, there are many varieties of mushrooms that you can get both at the farmer's market and at the grocery store. Often the most affordable are going to be like your button or cremini mushrooms, but keep an eye out. You never know, they go on sale and stuff too. So sometimes you can get a package of your more exotic mushrooms for cheap. I know that my farmer, if you buy more than one package, knocks some of the price off. So that makes it worth it for me to get a couple dollars off of 2 packages. So but they are actually not a vegetable, which is interesting because we are at National Eat Your Veggies Day here today, but they're considered not a plant, even though we culinarily think of them as a vegetable when we're cooking. They're actually a fungus. So they are a very good source of protein. They have that umami flavor that makes them like a great meat substitute. It's a great way you can chop up mushrooms really small and kind of add them to ground meat and stretch your meat.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. We see very often folks who don't eat meat or are trying to cut back on meat, that you'll see like a nice portobello mushroom cap, which is, it's large and it's got that nice firm texture. Some people even substitute them in for burgers. That's what we're going to be cooking with today. But like you said, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can even just stretch, a smaller amount of meat, add some nutrition, and sort of cut down on the expense of eating meat. So we're going to be talking about fresh mushrooms today, as is noted on our slide we have up here. You can also get them frozen or canned or dried. look for mushrooms that have a firm texture. So we've probably seen them before that have little sort of dark spots and they start to get a little slimy or slick on them. Those aren't the ones that you want. And of course, what we're always promoting, if you get them at the farmer's market, they're going to be super fresh. So you will probably see much less of that. You can stir in the original container for up to a week. And this is hot off the presses. So I grew up uh, hearing that you shouldn't wash your mushrooms, you should sort of wipe them off because they are very sort of spongy and they soak up water. But we checked in with one of our food safety experts at University of Maryland Extension, and she told us that you should actually be rinsing them. So, yeah, Lynn, are you a rinser or a wiper?
I used to be a wiper, and then about a year or two ago, I heard that we should be rinsing them. So I've been rinsing them. I can't say that it's caused a tremendous difference in the way they turn out. So I'm pleased to say it doesn't make them extra soggy or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think that that's true that, if it's a rinse to get off that extra dirt, you don't want to soak them because they then will soak up that water. And that's something that we've talked about is that they do soak up water, but they would also soak up oil. So if you're, cooking, don't be surprised if you're sauteing them that they sort of soak up the oil in the pan. It's okay because then they actually start to sort of release moisture as they cook.
Yes.
Great. So let's do the first step, introduce our recipe, which is Portobello
Okay.
pizzas, and do the first steps. And then we actually have a special guest that we're going to be introducing.
Excellent. So I have some, and I don't know if you want me, let me really quickly do that just so we have it if you need it. You can see my top here. I have some portobello mushrooms here, and we are going to be cooking these today. I have already rinsed these and then let them dry. A question is always, should we eat mushrooms raw or cooked? And one of the reasons why they're really great to eat cooked is that helps to our bodies to utilize the chitin in mushrooms, which is kind of the same thing. It's what makes up the cell structure of the mushroom. It is also the same thing that makes up the exoskeleton of our arthropods. So if you're eating some of the cicadas out there for nutritional benefit, you don't have to do that. You can get some of the same benefits from eating these mushrooms. And we are going to make a portobello pizza. I've got 3 portobellos here. They do have the stem on them still. And the stem of mushrooms can be, if they aren't younger mushrooms, can be kind of tough. So I'm just going to gently kind of work them out here and pull them off.
That's a great job for kids. I actually find that to be a very satisfying feeling, the way the stem pops out. So it's something I remember doing for my mom when I cooked with her as a kid.
That's funny. Now I will tell you, I might take these stems and chop them up really small and throw them into some ground meat, like we talked about. Like they might be too tough to eat in this state, but chopped up, they might do a fine job spreading some turkey or ground meat a little further. The next thing we're going to do is, you mentioned that they soak up a lot of oil. They do need something to keep them from sticking to the pan. So I'm just going to give it a quick nonstick spray. But I tend to avoid using a lot of oil with mushrooms, especially in the early stages of cooking, because as you said, it's like a wick. It just soaks it right up. And then all I'm doing is putting these face down on my sheet, and then they're going to go into the oven, a 450-degree oven, for about 15 minutes. So that we can then top them as pizzas.
Wonderful. And this is a great one that you can do in the toaster oven. So it's a gorgeous day today. And here in Central Maryland, it hasn't really heated up yet. But as we get into the summer months, I love opportunities to cook that don't require me to turn on the oven. So you could do this in the toaster oven if you're just making a couple. So we're going to let those cook. And while we do, we are going to check in with our guest for today. So Elle Menyuk from Great Kids Farm joins us for a second time as part of our Facebook Live. And we were really excited to find out. We were asking around among partners and farmers, like, who's got mushrooms growing? And I was extra excited to find out that Great Kids Farm was embarking on a project growing mushrooms with students in home mushroom kits. So I'm going to let Elle tell us about the life cycle of growing mushrooms, how mushrooms are grown, and then this project that they have done with Baltimore City public school, high school students to show them how to grow some mushrooms at home. So welcome, Elle.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Really pleased to be here today. So this year, with Baltimore City Schools, Baltimore Polytechnic High School, Bio 2, seniors in the Bio 2 class, advanced bio class, we were really excited to be able to have a project where students could get hands-on with an experiential activity at home. And we worked with Healing Bounty Mushroom, which is a commercial spore production farm in southern Pennsylvania. So because, as was said before, mushrooms are not plants, nor are they animals. The way that mushrooms reproduce is by spores, which are like millions of little tiny powdery cells that float off into the air. And the mushroom is actually the fruiting body of the fungus. So most of the mushroom is actually these mycelia is what they're called. Those are those white root looking things. If you roll a log over, you see those white looking roots, or you might see them growing on leaves in your backyard in the fall. You might see them on other foods, right? Yeasts are and molds are all types of fungus. Some of them are really beneficial to us, like penicillin, right? Is actually in the fungus family, and that is an antibiotic that has saved, thousands or even millions of people over the years. And those mycelia spread, and then eventually the fungus is like, oh, it's time for me to reproduce. Maybe it's raining or it's windy, so I know these will spread, or it's a temperature change. I want to make sure I reproduce before the winter comes, so that new mushrooms can grow next spring. Depending on the type of mushroom you buy, they have different things that trigger them to grow, just like different plants grow in different seasons. And I'm going to actually show you here a whole bag of mycelia. I'm going to flip my camera. That is growing some mushrooms out of it. So these are little baby oyster mushrooms growing right down here in the corner. And all this bag is filled with is sawdust and mushroom mycelia. So the rest of the white part is the main part of the mushroom. And then this part right here is the little baby oyster mushrooms growing. They're growing in this bag just like this, just like the students had. I tried it at home too. They haven't gotten very big yet. I let them dry out by accident, so I'm not sure how much more they'll grow. I might need to harvest these and cut them off, soak the bag, and do a second round, which will be really exciting. If they grow to full size, they will look like these mushrooms right here in the middle. These are oyster. Oh, sorry, my camera. Hold on. I know you lost me. There we go.
Oh, we can see it on this end.
Oh, you can see me. Okay, great. I pushed a button on my end. So the mushrooms right here in the middle are the oyster mushrooms. And they're looking a little raggedy because I bought them on Friday last week, but I wanted folks to see them. But they would be harvested from a bag. So this is the area where they would be harvested from. So you could kind of see them actually growing out of the bag just like that. And they could get to this size even from this little bag I have here. The other mushrooms I'm showing off are all mushrooms that came from king mushroom. King mushroom sells at a lot of farmers markets in our region. So here in Baltimore City, they sell at the Waverly Farmers Market. They might also sell at the JFX Market, which is the biggest market in Baltimore City, all of which accept the PBT and SNAP benefits. The Waverly Market is my neighborhood market. These are some button mushrooms, as were mentioned. These are kind of like baby portobello mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms, which have kind of a flatter surface and a richer flavor. Shiitake mushrooms have a very rich flavor, often, of course, used in East Asian cooking. And then the oyster mushrooms here in the center, which a lot of people like to chop them up and use them the way you might use seafood in a dish. Oyster mushrooms and king mushrooms are often used as like a crab replacement in dishes or as an alternative. The last thing I'm going to show everyone here is our little kit. We don't have like a DIY fully at home kit, but we partnered with the King Oyster to get the spawn, to get those spores. And then we bought these hardwood fuel pellets that you can just get at a Tractor Supply. We soak them with water. We mix this, we then sterilized them in the microwave. We just heated them up. We measured the temperature, made sure they got above 212 for sterilization, which is the boiling point of water. And we then put on gloves and masks so that our breath and our, bacteria or any spores that might be on our hands didn't contaminate what they were growing in. We wanted to give our mushrooms a chance to be the only ones growing in there. So I wasn't worried about, this wasn't for my protection. This was for the mushrooms protection. So it could grow. We grew them in these grow bags you see right here that have a little breathing patch for the mushrooms, but otherwise keep them safe and cozy in there. And it was really cool. We let them in there for about 10 days and the bag went from having, the little white patches of the spores that had grown on grain. That was the food the mushroom was decomposing first, was grain, very nutrient rich. And then they spread all over the sawdust, which is like, wood chips that would be outside, how mushrooms grow on logs and decompose, all of the things that are out in nature. So we reproduce that at home in a bag, in our bedrooms, in our kitchen. It was pretty simple, and you can go online and buy a mushroom pack if that's something you're interested in. That's like ready to go. So you just cut the hole in it. And then your own mushroom can grow out of that if that's something people are interested in. Or of course, you can go to your local grocery store or your farmer's market, especially if you want to get something like an oyster mushroom. I've never seen them at a grocery store. And that can be a lot of fun to cook with and explore from your farmer's market.
This is absolutely fascinating. And I hope that if there's any teachers who are watching, this is like an amazing STEM project. Which is how you guys did it. We spend a lot of time talking about the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom because those are the ones that are just sort of in the forefront of our reality. But you made such an interesting point about the fact that like the mushrooms are the fruiting bodies that we see, but that there's like huge amounts of living fungus material underground out of sight. In fact, I think I remember learning that like the biggest single organism in the world is this huge amount of fungus living underneath the ground that takes up like many square miles, but you just don't see it because the fruiting bodies are the piece that we see. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a several square mile mushroom out in the state of Oregon. Is the largest known organism in the world. And I'll just conclude by giving a big plug to mushrooms overall. I think they're amazing. They're fascinating. They have been used as food by people for millennia. There's evidence that people in ancient Egypt were eating mushrooms. The Mayans have all kinds of mushroom symbolism in some of their old pottery and artwork. Of course, mushrooms have been used as protein, also as medicine. We're now discovering that mushrooms can be grown and used as building materials or as compostable takeout boxes. They can be used to help clean up waterways and streams. So mushrooms have just so much power, and it's only in the last maybe couple of decades that scientists have really started to research and explore and learn more about them. And that's why you're only now maybe seeing all these different mushrooms also kind of pop up in your farmer's market because they haven't been explored as much in Western culture in the last couple hundred years until now. So we're at a really exciting time to learn about mushrooms, get into mushrooms, eat mushrooms, grow mushrooms.
Great.
So I hope that this is inspiring for folks.
Well, if we have any teacher inquiries who would like to do a similar project, maybe I could connect you so they could get maybe your materials list and so they could try something in their classrooms next year. So reach out to us if you're watching, or comment in the chat if you'd like to get a little bit more information of how you could do a similar project with your students. So, well, thank you so much. I love this. In Snap Ed, we just are constantly helping students understand where food comes from, because that fascination with the process of food makes it more interesting, to our palates and all of our senses. So I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing at Great Kids Farm to expose kids to these really fascinating aspects of the food we eat.
All right. Thank you for having us.
All right, wonderful. All right, Lynn, let's check in with your Portobello pizzas.
All right. So I have pulled them out of the oven here and I'm just chopping up some pepper and fresh herbs. I've got some basil here and I've pulled these out of the oven. They've been out for a few minutes. I'm not touching a hot pan. And then we're just going to top these like a pizza. Now you could use, I have fresh herbs, but you could always use dried. Because I'm using fresh, I am going to use just a little teeny bit of dried garlic powder and just a little sprinkle of salt on each one, just because I like them to have a little teeny bit of flavor. And then just like you would top a pizza, got tomato sauce. And you can use whatever tomato or spaghetti sauce you want. You could probably even use just chopped up fresh tomatoes. If you have some fresh tomatoes in the summertime, they would be great. Use this way. And then I have
even just like a nice big slice of a fresh summer tomato on there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some chopped up, like already cooked chicken sausage here. This is totally optional, but if you wanted to kind of give them a little bit more protein, you could do that, or you could keep it veggie or veggie and fungus. And then I'm just going to top them with a little bit of cheese. I'm using a part skim mozzarella here. You could use any kind of pizza cheese or even like a blend cheese would be good on here. And then I've got a little bit, like I said, of fresh pepper I chopped up. And I love onions on pizza. Any way to sneak in extra veggies is good. And then I'm using, like I said, a little bit of basil. And I'm going to put these back in the oven. Got some to pull out. So this one is not quite done, but you can kind of see I threw one together while the other caps were cooking here. So these caps will be ready for topping, but then I've got this other one here that's melting nicely.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to hear from our viewers what you love to put on your pizza. I think this is one thing. We did a project with school districts talking about using their, especially if they have leftover vegetables that were served as a side that they could roast and put on a pizza. You know, who doesn't like pizza? And it's a wonderful canvas for adding vegetables too. So if you have a favorite pizza topping, I will tell you my favorite is, I like red onions sliced really thin. I like banana peppers that are kind of sliced thin. I like olives. I really like olives on my pizza. So not necessarily the most bountiful veggie, but and I do love those onions and peppers together. All right.
I was just gonna say my favorite topping is actually mushrooms, so I get to have the pizza as the topping.
That's wonderful. So okay, so let's take a look at our upcoming episodes. Right, so next week, if you are a gardener or a farmer's market shopper, do not miss this one. We're going to be talking about summer squash. You hear all sorts of jokes about, you know, in the middle of the summer, you know, you have to make sure your doors are locked, or a gardener neighbor might drop off summer squash because they are so abundant. They're extremely affordable and they're really versatile. They can be used in a lot of different ways in cooking. We're also going to have a really interesting guest, Roving Radish, which is a really cool meal kit service that serves anyone in Howard County, but particularly is set up to serve EBT customers. So don't miss that one. We're talking berries on July 1st. Corn on July 8th, because we're coming into corn season, and then blueberries on July 15th. So if you're watching this live, that you know how to find us, but make sure that you have liked our page and turned on notifications so that you get the alert when our broadcasts start. And then as far as finding us on the web, our new recipe website is extension.umd.edu/eatsmart. You can find all of our recipes there. This is our new website, so there's pictures. Some of them even have links to videos of how to make the recipe. It's beautiful, clean, simple. You can search by ingredient. So make sure you check that out. Our Facebook page, which is where we broadcast these live, and the recorded sessions are also on our feed, but there's lots of other great information and tips that are seasonal and timely for, you know, your family to eat well and move your bodies through the summer. And then our YouTube page, which we also post these recorded Facebook Lives on. But there's also all sorts of nutrition education lessons and recipe videos on there as well. So before we sign off, let's go back to Lynn and have a look at that finished product. Look at that. How can you even resist? Oh, I can see the steam even. So we have a delicious Portobello pizza surrounded by some beautiful salad greens. So I hope you were inspired by this. Get out to the farmer's market or otherwise get your hands on some mushrooms and use them in your cooking in a new way. So hope to see you back here next week, Thursday at 11 a.m. And until then, happy shopping, happy cooking.